I got something on my mind and I want to get it off. It's more of an emotion. It's more of a feeling. This isn't scripted. This isn't something I wrote down or really even thought about. But it's something that's going through my head today because I had a good. Well, he's really my boss. I consider him a friend. I know we can't really fraternize. A very good guy who's treated very poorly just because of how nice he is and how willing he is to help people. He's taken advantage of quite a bit. And so I want to throw in just a little bit of my own experience before I get to the point of this, and that is that when I was a child, I'm fairly bright, not in the sense of intelligence, but in the sense of I like to make noise, I like to sing, I like to dance, I like to do things in public that other people might find, even slightly embarrassing. However, I mean, never to harm anyone. I'm never in anyone's way. I'm just really expressing my joy, right? So my whole life, this expression of emotion was treated as a sort of pathology by my parents, both my mother and my father. My father would find any example of my behavior that he could, even as harmless as it was, as much happiness as it gave me, to tell me how wrong it was and how I shouldn't be doing it and how I should be suppressing those pieces of myself. That was him in a nutshell. Anytime I thought to try and achieve, anytime I thought to try and excel, he would put me down. And then when I stopped trying because of the way that he treated me, he would become enraged and ask me why I wasn't doing as well as I should be. And so it was a very difficult place for me to be as a person. My mother, on the other hand, was always, you need therapy, you need medicine, you need this, you need that. Never taking the time to acknowledge that, like, maybe you just had a child who was a little bit different and could use a little bit of acceptance and a little bit of love and things like that. I mean, even until we finished, like, stopped speaking some months ago, until I decided not to speak to my family. I made that cutoff, and that was my choice. They treated who I was, how I acted, um, and just the way that I saw the world as a problem. I'm always saying, like, we can do better as a people. We can do better as individuals. We can improve. We don't have to stay where we're at. We don't have to accept the status quo. We can progress things. We can improve things. We can do better. And they always sort of pushed back and said, well, this is the way of the world, and that's just the way it is. And that is the case in a lot of cases. But it's the people who stand up and say that, regardless of the status quo, I'm going to do something crazy, and that's going to push things forward. It's those kinds of people. It's that kind of innovation that moves humanity forward. And that kind of innovation probably and usually comes from people who have, maybe mental illnesses or would be considered at this point on the autism spectrum. I would say, for an example, Leonardo da Vinci. I don't think he was cutting open bodies. I don't think that he was making those paintings. I don't think that he was inventing tanks and helicopters because he was neuronormative. I think that Da Vinci was probably one of us, and he just made do. He did his best. He did what he had to do to survive. What do they say? Necessity is the mother of invention, right? He came up with some really weird inventions. Of course, nowadays we would say that they're essential. Back then, they probably thought he was a madman. And you sort of feel like that in life these days. But getting around to the point, there are people still in this world, and I think it's changing now as time goes on. But there are people still in this world who are a bit different, maybe a bit goofy. Maybe they don't seem the same as everybody else. Maybe they're just, maybe a little off, but not a bad way, just strange. And I think that the people who claim to love them, like their families and such, are the people who sort of push them into being miserable and anxious about who they are and don't really take the time to see, well, like I said, getting around to the point, the human tapestry for what it is as a whole. I think people tend to concentrate on the color of one thread at a time, and they don't really take time to step back and take a look at everything all at once. If you look at one thread at a time, and there's a section of the tapestry, and it needs to be blue, and all the threads in that section of the tapestry are blue, but then there's a border section, and that needs to be purple, and then the next section needs to be red. All of the blue threads are going to think that the purple threads are strange, and all of the red threads are going to think that the purple threads are strange, because we're red and we're blue. There's only a few purple in between, in the margins there, to sort of complete the gradient between red and blue, so they must be strange. There's something weird, there's something odd about them. But when you take a step back and look at the whole thing, it's a beautiful sunset. And without that purple there, it just wouldn't work. It would just be red to blue. It would be jarring. It would be horrible cosmetically. It would not be aesthetic in any way. It would just be two colors smashed together with no gradient. It wouldn't be beautiful. So what I'm asking of everyone is, when you see the purple threads, don't try to make them red threads, and don't try to make them blue threads, and don't give them hell because they're purple. Just let them be and take a step back and see if maybe they're purple for a reason. And for those of you who are purple threads, I like to consider myself one of them. Don't let other people tell you that you don't belong in this picture, because you do. Without you, this doesn't work. It doesn't look right. It doesn't feel right. No one's going to want it. We need the red, we need the blue, and we need the purple. So I guess that's really all I got to say. Just treat each other with kindness and understand that someone who's different from you is different because they need to be different. If everyone was the same, it would be a very, very boring tapestry. It would be a brown tapestry. It would just be a rug with no pattern. Something that the universe wipes its feet on. And I don't think anybody wants to be that. So be you. Be proud of who you are. And don't put other people down for being different. So that's what I got today. Guys, have a great one. Later.